call this meeting of the Upshur County Board of Education to order, and our first order of business this evening is to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Johns, would you read the mission statement, please?
The mission of the Upshur County Schools is to provide academic preparation, social responsibility, employability, and the desire for lifelong learning.
Thank you. Let the clerk note that all members are present with the exception of Dr. Allman, who had a previous engagement. Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
I'd like to request and recommend that we have an executive session for property towards the end of our meeting. No decisions, just want to talk about a few property issues.
Like, you say towards the end?
We could do
after personnel? Or no, after delegations?
After delegations.
Yeah, okay. And board member comments. Okay. Anything else?
No. No, sir.
I believe there's no personnel adjustments.
The short list is
Yeah.
List today.
Motion to approve the adjusted, amended agenda.
motion to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Seaver.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Johns.
Too quick.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Had a chance to review the minutes of March 27th regular meeting. Attachment A, any additions or corrections noted for those minutes? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to approve. Thank you, Mrs. Bellamy. Second. Thank you, Mr. Johns. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to acknowledgements or announcements about your highlights.
Just a few announcements tonight, and one announcement and an acknowledgement. We did have our dropout prevention forum March 29th at Wesleyan. We had a panel discussion with myself as well as several principals, Mrs. Warner, Mr. Roy, Mr. Wilmuth, and Mrs. Johnson, and Jody Akers, and it was a really productive, I felt it was a very productive meeting. The gist of it is we answered the questions that were generated for the public in the last forum, so we'll be scheduling another one in the very near future. But I want to compliment Mrs. Akers for organizing that in conjunction with Joyce Harris Thacker from FRN. She assisted us. Idris Gooden from RESA 7 was our facilitator, and it was just a real good evening. And if you read any of the newspaper accounts, you can see that a lot of good information was shared. As far as announcement, we do have a tour of the middle school tomorrow at 6 o'clock. We'll be taking a tour through. Our architect will be here to assist us in a guided tour, and we'll see what the middle school has to hold there, and we'll get through that tour. And we're going to videotape that tour so that we can perhaps put it out on our website also for the public that's not able to attend. But we invite everybody to attend that. And the other one is that, don't forget and mark your calendars, that June 1st is graduation. And that's an evening graduation this year. That is a Friday night, and that's a change from what we've had in the past years. And that's it.
The time?
7 o'clock, I
7
believe.
Okay, thank you. Moving on into unfinished business. Continue our discussion about the school facilities.
Well, I already announced that we're having the tour tomorrow night, and we're looking forward to that. But we're still working on the survey, and the public survey. We're trying to figure out the best way to get that out. I know we talked about mailing or putting it in the value guide. We've since learned of a company in Fairmont that will assist us and actually do a direct mail to all our homes. They'll assist with the labeling and getting them out. They have addresses for approximately 11,000 folks in our community. They can direct mail it. We just completed the application for the bulk mail, where if they send it back, then we're charged for it. But the cost will be approximately for the entire thing. What did we say, Keith and George, about $4,000 when it's all said and done in that area. So, you know, the cost is significant, but we need your,
That's if we go with this company.
that's if we go with the company and go with the return. We have have it online. It's up as a test site right now, just for us in the central office to view it and see how it's going to work. But we plan on activating it online through our website here in the next couple of days. And we also plan on having hard copies available in various places throughout the community. So I guess we're still we still need that ultimate direction if you want us to go with the direct mail. It is somewhat costly, but on the other side, as we've talked about, if you want to get the responses, then we're going to have to do some investment.
Well, I think, you know, you talk about, you know, providing that to the people that have children in the system, but really, as far as I'm concerned, everyone should see it.
Yes.
Sure.
Because after all, everyone votes. I mean, it's not just those,
Well, they don't all vote, we wish they would.
yeah, right.
Yeah, we're certainly not trying to eliminate anybody. We want everybody to have access to it. So we'll pursue that.
You want to read that online? Well, you know, I was thinking that, what did we say was the cost if we go through the value guide?
It's $55 per 1,000 copies for them to, and you have to have it 10 days in advance for them to literally put it into the value guide. So as we talk more about that, that sounds like a very reasonable way to do it. But then we also talked about what some people do with inserts in the value guide. So if you have the direct mail right to the mailbox, then you've got a better opportunity of somebody actually looking at it and returning it. And we still have the cost of the application for the bulk mail, and then we have to pay for the bulk mail when it comes back to us.
Plus printing.
Plus the cost of printing.
What is that cost up front? I mean, the bulk mailing? Yeah.
The bulk mailing cost is $185 just for the application, and then we choose how many. We have to give them an upfront account, and then as they come in, they draw from that account. So I don't remember exactly what the bulk rate is, but it's cheaper than a regular stamp. Go ahead, Adrian.
It's not actually bulk rate, it's business reply, and it's the regular postage plus a fee. They didn't tell me what the fee was, so it's a little more than standard postage, but you're only paying for the ones coming back. Bulk rate's about 14 cents or 14 and a half cents a letter, but this won't be bulk rate. It will be regular postage plus a small fee per piece that comes back to us.
Anyone have any history on something like this as to what kind of a percentage you would expect back?
We've always been told through school system surveys that if you get 40 to 50%, you're doing very well. But other surveys will tell you that if you're lucky to get 20%,
Well,
depending on the issue.
I figured maybe a third, but something like that.
You know, I'm thinking that, you know, maybe first of all, none of us have ever done surveys for a business. And maybe we ought to ask somebody what might be the best route for us to go. We used to utilize Jeff Godwin at one time to help us do surveys. He has some knowledge about, you know, the amount of data needed and that sort of thing. I don't know if there's anybody else available. I know he's not working here anymore, but if we could maybe find some information from somebody about, you know, maybe the best route to go. How are we most likely to get a decent sampling, and what would that be?
Let me voice something here that just crossed my mind. A few years back, I put a thing in the paper advertising for Right Way, and the ad said, if you bring this ad in, it's worth $50. It didn't say you had to buy anything or anything. I received not one of them back. Not a one came back. And, you know, everyone that read the paper should have walked in there and asked for their $50.
Yeah, I missed it.
So you have to read the paper.
Mr. Moran did go down and talk with Dick Ralston the other day to see what his recommendation might be, and if he can print them, and if he has the wherewithal to do it. And he's actually the one that recommended and made the phone call to the company out of Fairmont. Do you want to,
He called just because I was elaborating on what we were trying to do and whatnot. And he called and asked them, and just from their perspective, and obviously they're just mailing, well, kind of, mailing, but they basically said that's the, if you want something to be in their hands to possibly get a result back, they felt that was the easiest thing to do. And just off the top of my head, I remember it's like, when we were talking about, financial wise, I think it's like 8,800 of those 11,000 would be at, I think, 7 cents to mail. And then there's, the rest of it, 20, whatever that is, 2,800, 2,300 at 10 cents. And they do all the labeling and everything like that. For a total cost of, for those 11,000 pieces, was like $1,600, $1,700 roughly. For all of them to do all of that, to put it in the mailbox, drop it, and then get sent out. And then with Mr. Ralston, if we asked him to print them, it'd be, I think, roughly $450 or $400 for that. So then we just have the return on whatever comes
and then
back,
whatever we get back?
would be the rest of the cost.
So it's actually,
So it's not
$4,000.
It's not
But,
four.
I mean, it depends if everybody, if everybody sent them back, I mean, I guess you can get to that. But just the preliminary to get it out and printed and everything like that is whatever, I said, 2,200 or 2,100.
And the 11,000, is that, they're getting evidently a registered voters list? Is that how they're obtaining?
I didn't ask that question, but I can find that out. I didn't ask how they get the names, but I would assume.
And they indicated that they already have the list.
Yeah, they have
Right.
a list.
So it must be one that they use.
Seems like a lot of money to spend if we're not absolutely sure in what direction we're going in yet. And yet this might help us make up our mind on that.
Well, I think it would get the idea out to the public that, we are trying to get their input, making them a part of it, not being
Their opinion does matter that
Yes,
way.
it does.
And I've been to 2 organizations in the last week and to discuss this issue, and I have told them we're going to put a survey out to the public and we want their input. So we do have to get it out there. It's just a matter of how we're going to do it.
Well, that sounds like the most reliable way.
I'd have to agree.
I mean, without even knowing who those 11,000 people are. 11,000 people is almost half the people in Upshur County. I'm sure it probably is most of the registered voters. But whether they're registered to vote or not, we still want their opinion personally.
Sure.
So I think we maybe ought to.
We'll still have them available in other locations.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Have we checked the cost of printing with anybody else other than Ralston's?
No. And I
He's our only
suggested
local
we can
guy.
do it in-house too.
Yeah.
Be a little time consuming and stuff like that, but we can still run them out.
Well, it seems like people have better things to do with their time. Dick does that for a living. We're in the business of education. I hate to have somebody spend that much time running off 11,000 copies or something. I mean, I think that for $450, if that's what it was, that's certainly well worth the
I
time
would think it
spent.
would be cheaper.
Yeah, I think so too.
Well, I know Wesleyan, their service center does outside work too, so I didn't know. Sometimes they run a little bit cheaper than
Who's that?
around. Wesleyan,
Mhm.
their service center does outside work. So I didn't know if that was, check with them. I don't know if there's anybody else in town that does that kind of thing.
Well, we're going to move forward on it then and get it done.
Yes, let's do
We've
it.
got to get it done. So
Yeah.
we're going to move forward now based on what you've
Let's go
what
ahead.
you've said tonight. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I did start the discussion by, or tell you, I've been to Suba, and then I was at the Chamber of Commerce yesterday, and we talk not only about the middle school project, but the MIP projects and getting the word out of what we're going to be doing there with the electrical upgrades at all the elementary schools. So we're starting to build that community input and get out there and talk about the issues. So we've invited them all to the tour.
Where were you? The paper said you was in Barber County.
Yeah, one of the papers did say that.
Was
One
that
of
us?
the papers. Yeah,
We did?
your headline did.
Yeah.
You know what? I don't even read that piece of crap anymore. That's no lie. I apologize.
There seems to be a problem with headlines. There ought to be a course in headline making. I swear.
I can vouch for the fact that we were in Upshur.
We were in Upshur County.
I can too.
And I saw John there too.
I wrote the story that said Buchanan Chamber of Commerce.
The caption on the photograph is correct.
Yes, it was. It was.
That's good.
And we're moving forward with the summer maintenance, and hopefully by our next meeting, we'll have the costs and the breakdown of what we're doing. We're still working with getting all that in place. Okay.
Very good. And just as a refresher for me, and for the rest of us for that matter, when do we need to revise our CEFP? At what point? Just
There's no set date for that. Each year, we review it and
Right.
update it as needed, and we can amend it when we see fit. There's no set time that you have to do it at this time. Because the projects that we're doing now still fit within the CEFP.
Right.
So,
right.
but our goal is to be looking at that here, once we make the decision on middle school to start amending that. So there's no set date for that.
Anything else on facilities? Anybody got questions or thoughts? Okay, move on then. Item 8, financials. We have the payment of the bills, attachment B, and financial reports, attachment C. George, anything out of the ordinary there?
As far as the report for March, it's pretty much tracking with what we've seen all year long. Nothing that jumped out at me as being unusual in that month. Just like to report, we're still working on the budget, and we need to have some discussion about when you want to have the budget workshop and nail that down. I guess we can do that at the end of the meeting when you're talking about the next meeting dates. We'll try to get that ready and have it ready for you when you want to have that meeting. We did get approval back from the state auditor's office for our levy rates. So when you reconvene the meeting on the 24th, that you can approve those.
17.
17th? 17th, okay. I'm sorry. There's a regular meeting on the 24th.
Correct.
Yeah. And we can then submit those for final approval and get that in motion. That's all I have this evening.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions about the bills or financial statement? Then we entertain a motion to approve the bills.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Suter. Second. Thank you, Mrs. Bellamy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Consent agenda tonight has transportation requests for field trips for the middle school and French Creek Elementary. Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Mrs. Bellamy. Second. Thank you, Mr. Suter. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 10, approval of the school calendar for next year. Attachment F. Are you going to speak to that, or is it John?
Mr. Heyman is here. He coordinated that effort and was the chairperson of the committee.
We began work February on the calendar, got the material out to the schools, can discuss it with the patrons and the staff members. And when I look here in the back row and Mr. Croggs, you see a lot of the committee that worked on it, so I appreciate their help. And the vote came back overwhelmingly for A. And they made me thinking in terms of the opportunities that are there with the warm weather that we're having. I heard on the news today it's 8.5 degrees warmer overall for this season, and I think 15,000 records have been broken across the state or nation in the various states. So they opted to go ahead and have a change with the OS days a little bit this time on the calendar. The recommendation that they went with shows a little bit of change with the OS days. Some of the counties did that this year, and they converted at the end, so they had more OS days at the end of the year. They didn't do like we did. So it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other, whether you have them early or not. You can't do anything until after March the 1st.
Right.
So any of the committee members want to share any information, feel free.
Well, I hope they didn't vote on that calendar based on this
On
year.
this year.
Because this was a very unusual year. They
It
could be
was.
very unhappy next year.
But, you know-
My guess is a lot of them did, because I heard a lot of, well, I don't know, complaints, but comments saying, well, so-and-so county's getting out the 2nd and 3rd of June this year. They're getting out the end of May, because they had all their days at the end of the year. And I said, well, this was a mighty unusual year.
Yes, that's true. And I heard some of those same comments. But by the same token, I also heard good comments about 4-day weeks for the rest of the year.
Except for the public. Some of the folks, parents are not too awful happy
Wow.
about that. But where do where do you draw the line? They were also not happy that they had their vacation scheduled, in years previous, they had their vacation scheduled to end on, or, to start on the last day of scheduled year, but then we had to extend the year because of the snow days and that kind of thing, so.
Had this been a typical winter, this would have been a fantastic calendar.
Yes,
It was
It
the most
would have
sound
had-
calendar academically we've ever had.
Yeah,
That's right.
Instruction all through, before AP exams, before final exams, before standardized testing.
That's one of the things that we discussed in our committee meetings was number of instructional days prior to the testing season. And trying to protect those rather than having all of those extra, in case we were to miss days in the winter, making them up in June makes no educational sense as far as for the testing season.
And I like the fact that everybody from the very first of the school year knows what the last day of school is.
Right.
And I think that's
Well, it is what it is. We'll still get 180 days in one way or the other. And I feel confident that whether or not we have quality days before testing or after testing, that they'll all have things that they learn either way. So, I mean, that's, we'll just go on and we'll accept it, I guess.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Suter. Thank you, Mrs. Bellamy, for the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. You didn't ask for our approval on that, but I suppose you did want it.
Yes, we did. I missed that.
Moving on to policies then. Item 11. It's our third reading and approval of revised policy section 1.1, or new policy 1001. Educational mission and goals. Attachment G. This is our continuation of revising our policy manual. And tonight, we need to vote on and approve this policy in its finality here.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Suter. Thank you, Mrs. Bellamy. Any questions about the policy? It's the same policy, we're just changing the numbers. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I'm sorry, Mr. Dilly, did you have anything you wanted to say
No,
about that for these others?
no, we just made the changes that you wanted, and I
Right.
think we're moving forward now, so,
Like, I wish we were done. It's a long policy book.
yes, it is.
So then, item B and C, second reading of revised policy 1.I.2, new policy 1501, policy development is attachment H. And second reading of revised policy section I.3, new policy 1002, about board meetings, is attachment I. You got any comments on this? Excellent.
We had one comment on each that said, looks good.
Great. That's what we like to hear. Any comments from you all? Okay, then we'll move on. We'll approve those at the next meeting. So then, item 12 is approval of support for the Pro Grant application for BU Middle School, attachment J. For a minute, I thought I heard Mrs. Akers walking in, but no, it's the ambulance chaser.
We, as you know, we were made aware of a grant opportunity for a pro officer at Buchanan Upshur Middle School. And the deadline for application is April the 20th. So we went ahead and put a committee together. Mrs. Akers and Mrs. Warner were the primary writers of the grant in conjunction with the County Commission. We are going to be asking for a grant of $50,000, of which we have to have financial support with the Board of Education and the County Commission for an additional 25% of that $50,000. So the total grant amount of money needed is $66,000, 50 of which we hope will come from the grant. So we're asking tonight for your support to move forward with that. Mrs. Akers is on the agenda for the County Commission for Thursday morning to get their support and approval of it. And our share of the grant, our contribution will be $9,000, $299, and we'll be asking the Upshur County Commission for $7,400. And basically that $9,000 that we're talking about is to fulfill more of the salary that's involved, salary and benefits, because that will be getting the main service out of that officer. So tonight we're asking for your support to pursue the grant, and then once, if we're lucky or fortunate enough to receive it, then we'll approve it and accept it.
Is it just a one-year grant?
It is a one-year grant.
1 year. Renewable,
Yes.
but for a lower amount like the other one, we ended up.
I don't know the specifics of that.
Yeah, the other one actually faded over 2 years.
2 or 3.
It was renewable, and then last year it was just totally turned down. So we're taking care of the entire amount with that one. And we're not eligible for, this particular grant is not eligible for the high school. This is because it was a different funding source to start with. So my feeling is if we can go forward with this grant and we have a pro officer at both our schools, for what we're putting into it, I think is very reasonable.
And what are we paying Kramer now per year?
We pay Kramer $40,000 approximately.
It's well worth it.
So it is worth it to have the additional authority that this officer would have.
Okay. Any questions? Anybody?
I think it's moving in the right direction.
So, motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Bellamy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We approve, we support, we hope we get it. Any correspondence or information?
I did receive one correspondence that I want to talk with you about. I think we talked briefly about it, but I got a request from the Upshur County Parks and Recreation Advisory Board asking support in allowing Buchanan Upshur or Middle School and Buchanan Academy to be bus stops for Country Road Transit this summer so that students can get on the bus at those two stops and they're going to take them up to the pool at no cost to the students. And if adults want to ride the bus, they will be charged $1.50. What I'd like to do tonight, again, is it just came. I didn't have enough time to put an agreement together. But what I'd like to do is put an agreement together and have you formally accept it at our next meeting. But tonight, I think it's a wonderful idea. And what they'd like to do is park out front here in the bus loop and then on the Tolmansville side of Buchanan Upshur Middle School. A run in the morning and a run in the evening. Mrs. Bellamy, I believe you're on that board. Did I?
Well, I've had contact with them through soccer.
Yeah. Okay. And I do want to talk, this letter came from, oh no, Alan, you're on the rec board. I'm sorry. You're the stalker, you're the rec. This letter came from Richard Edwards, and there's a couple of things in the letter that I do want to talk to him about. He talks about students having to wear school IDs to get on the bus. Well, we don't our students don't carry IDs any longer. They carry lunch cards. I think the high school might still, do you do IDs anymore on the back of their lunch cards? But, so we'd have to work those details out, but unless they want to provide ID cards of some sort. So I'd like to work the details out, but I wanted to make you aware of it, and I'm assuming that you would support that.
See why not? Is there any liability on our part?
Well, that's why I'd like to put an agreement together to be sure.
I mean, what if they pull out and get hit here, or if a kid slips getting into the bus?
Right.
Who gets, are we gonna be held harmless?
Well, that's why I want to put an agreement together. I want to check with Brim to make sure that we're not.
And that.
Or if we are, we want to get it, we want to be sure we're covered.
That is an issue with the rec board
Yeah.
also.
Is it?
And we were looking more and trying to get an answer from the county commission on.
That they would accept that.
Right. Yeah, but it is a positive step forward to try to get children up there to swim.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Yeah, I think it's,
Now, this will be for middle school and high school, correct? Will there be any have to have parental authorization to?
I would assume
in the
that they'll have
beginning?
parental authorization to initially ride the bus, but there'll be no supervision at the bus stops. And the way they characterize it in here is much the same as picking a student up for school. We don't have supervision at bus stops. So, but we could put that in the agreement, that there has to be some initial authorization or
And there is an
permission slip
age-
from the
There
parent.
is an age limit. Or,
That was my understanding, there should be an age
yes,
limit.
and that was in the discussion that there was
Okay.
an age limit.
I don't see that in the letter, but we'll make sure that it's in the agreement.
Was essentially didn't want young
Right.
children on it.
Didn't want elementary.
Yeah. Okay. But that was the correspondence, and
Okay.
I wanted to put it under correspondence, and then I'll bring it back with the agreement.
Does the code require supervision for a certain age?
Yes.
I believe it's 14.
Yeah, I was just saying, if you go by the rules of the pool, it says any children under the age of a certain age has to have a parent with them.
Right.
So
I was
it's
thinking
probably be the
14.
rules of the pool too, is what I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah. Good point.
So,
think we need
so,
to have
you
that
know,
in
if
the-
a kid's standing out there and he's 6 years old, to get on that bus, legally he couldn't, because once he gets there, he's got no supervision.
Right.
Okay.
Very good. You'll get that together.
Yes, sir.
We'll look at that. Nothing else?
No.
So we'll move on to item 14. Bless you. Personnel, you've had a chance to review the superintendent's recommendations for personnel. Shouldn't have took you too long. Motion to approve the personnel.
Make a motion, we approve.
Thank you, Mrs. Bellamy.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Johns. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We have no delegations tonight, no public comments. Board member comments.
I have a couple.
Great.
I have been asking the public about a couple questions as far as if we could look into trying to get a 5th grade band started back up. And another comment was, I know it's always been a concern with students if it was a 3-day weekend or spring break, that some students don't have maybe enough food at home to eat. I had a parent to suggest maybe looking at what it would cost, or would it be feasible to let them ask for some kind of a sack lunch that you could send home with them over that weekend, you know, if it was a 3-day weekend or spring break, you know. I know that you can't, she mentioned snow days also, but you can't predict the weather. But I told him that I would bring it to the board's attention and weigh it out.
We can certainly look into it.
Look into it.
We've looked into the 5th grade band, about 3 years ago. We looked at, actually, we applied for a Innovation Zone grant to be able to provide that for us again.
Right.
So we'll pull that up again and look at it another time.
The biggest problem with
It's the-
fifth grade
it's the
band
staff.
is finding time to do it. It almost has to be after school.
When we wrote the Innovation Zone grant, we did, I
That's
believe
how it works.
we put it in there to be either before or after school because of that. We even talked about perhaps having it held at Stockard, didn't we?
Right.
So we'll explore that again because it is a good idea. but
They were
it's-
just looking at
number
that
of
from the
minutes and-
aspect that, you know, we could build band numbers back up. And, you know, that they weren't waiting till their sixth grade year to decide, maybe not till seventh, that they want
Yeah.
to join band.
I don't think anybody would disagree with the fifth grade band, but it is a money thing.
It's a staffing thing,
Yeah,
personnel,
staffing.
and the number of minutes within a school day and the required minutes.
Yeah,
Well, we can look at it again.
yeah. Be another opportunity.
And Mrs. Nesselrode and I will discuss a little more thoroughly the food and that kind of thing. I know that some schools, when they know there's going to be an extended break, I know teachers have contributed and saw to it that some kids had something to take home with them.
And then there is something that I'll look into, it's called a weekend backpack or something. And I don't know if it's a grant or something where, I can look into it, but there was, if you qualify for free and reduced, it's something about a backpack that they can fill with items to take home over the weekend.
Right.
That's something, you know, that would be kind of like we do a snack at some elementary schools, or something like that. It's either gonna be coming out or is coming out, that we could offer something like that. That's what you're asking for.
Right, that's,
And it wouldn't been just be for the kids that ask, it would be there for those that qualify if and when that becomes available and able for us to do. So that's an idea. We'll look at it.
And we'll talk more about that.
Very good idea. Any other comments?
I did have a couple of parents ask me about summer school at the high school, and maybe Mr. Wilmot, if there's anything come out yet about a schedule for summer school or.
I haven't received anything from the state yet, have you?
Yes, actually, it was forwarded to you yesterday, I believe, so it
My
did.
email wasn't
But
working
your
yesterday.
email hasn't been working. We were getting emails back saying, couldn't deliver it. Yeah, I didn't want to say that.
Blocked.
No thanks. But we just received the application process from the state to go forward with that. And we were actually talking about not only summer school, but our summer maintenance crew and painting, and because we have to post all those positions with summer school. So we're moving ahead on that. Bob just doesn't know it yet.
Okay, see, it's pays to come to these meetings, Bob.
I can defend myself a little bit.
Okay, anything else? No, that's all right, don't worry about it. So, our next meeting day, we're going to have a reconvene meeting on the March 27th meeting will be on the 17th, which is next Tuesday, to approve the levy rates formally. And that will be at 7:30 a.m. at the board office. And our next regular meeting will be held Tuesday, April 24th, here at Academy at 7 p.m. We're now going to go into executive session to talk about some property issues. No decision will be made, and we will see you all later. Thanks for coming. Motion to go into executive session?
motion to go into executive session for profit.
Thank you, Mr. Suter.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Bellamy. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.